making this rank 10. Those of you who have been joined in with us for the last 20 minutes or
Hey
so.
there, Brendan.
Hey, Brendan.
72410.
Nice to see you. We're procrastinating and not doing our rank 10 right now. Talking about anything else that can get us away from it. So I think it may be time to put on our focus pants.
Oh, we're supposed to be wearing pants?
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Okay.
I mean, not you,
Of
but
course not.
us professionals have to show up at the office every day with pants.
Yeah, okay.
My my office is actually my bed. So
At least I'm sitting at a desk.
yeah, yeah. Oh, okay. So
Rank 10, rank 10.
let's think about what an active would want to be for this class.
So right now, what they have been is an interruption and a retarget.
Right.
Both actives have a retarget.
So what do we want to break? I think we need to break that in a way.
Yes. That's yes.
I wonder. I think it has to do with the mask. I think the answer lies in the rank 3 ability, the mask passive.
Hmm.
I don't know in which way it does, but I'm fairly certain that it does.
Which part of it?
I don't know. I think it's about distributing masks, honestly. Guy
Right.
Fawkes style.
I almost want it to be that everybody in the battle gets a mask, and
Anonymous the
each play
clown.
and each character is shuffled.
Yeah. So it's like half Oprah Winfrey, half anonymous.
Yeah.
You get a mask, and you get a mask.
And
Yes.
now, where are you?
Yeah. Well, that'd be kind of cool, but it would undo
Rank 7.
right the value of rank 7. Um,
Hmm.
I mean,
If it's distributing of masks,
I don't
more than one at a time would be bad.
yeah, I don't like the idea necessarily, but I kind of
What if it's a one-turn mask?
no, because then you get into like weird. It feels like it shouldn't break the rules that we've established. You know, like one of the
Yeah.
rules is everyone has their masks on until you take yours
Until
off.
take it off.
And I know that's not like a hard and fast rule or anything else, but it seems like if we built a
Right now, it's
structure,
pretty hard and fast.
yeah,
We've actually designed.
around it,
Yeah.
sure. But I guess what I'm saying is it's not like the rule couldn't be broken. It would just have to be a really good reason for it.
Hmm.
This active is gonna turn me gray. Not just my hair, but all of me. Exchange feigned and real damage. I'm gonna have to read through all the abilities.
Yeah. Hmm. But welcome to the most boring part of the stream.
Yeah, sorry guys. When we put our focus pants on, sometimes
Stop talking.
yeah, they're just so enveloping, I guess.
They're
I mean,
really comfortable pants.
they're perfectly sized. They've got really good ankle fit. I know that that's not something that people usually look for in pants, but
Not
you've
until they think about it.
yeah, and like if you've never had really good ankle fit pants, then
I'm sorry.
yeah, you're missing out. So it's something else, especially in the wintertime. It's your turn. Environment where it's going to be seen. Copy of you. They appear as a copy.
Maybe what I said earlier about the. No, that's still. I don't know. I really want it. Almost like you mask your entire team, and then your team's position is shuffled.
Would be the issue is that
I know what the
yeah,
issue is.
okay.
It's just I can't get it out of my head.
Think about how to correct those issues.
That's what I've been doing.
Keep
I'm gonna die.
get those focus pants nice and constricty.
Uh,
One thing that usually helps, and the reason why I like to Def, LOL. Yes, thanks Def. Uh, One of the things I like to do, besides get off track and not think about it and try and let my subconscious mind do some work, which is usually my way of explaining away the procrastinating I'm doing. But if I'm more if I'm being more honest, I actually think it does help somewhat.
mm,
One of the things I also like to do is take an idea as far as it can possibly go in my head and then just throw it away as hard as I can, like throw it into a deep, dark, dusty corner and then focus on something else. And usually the thing that ends up happening almost invariably is that the idea
combination.
fights its way back, like comes crawling back and beats whatever idea I'm thinking about now into submission with a better implementation. Because my mind just wants it so badly at that point. It's like when you've got to find out someone's name, like you know an actor's name, and someone's talking about them, and you just want to give the answer so bad. It's like I know this guy, but you can't figure it out. And then later you're driving home, you're like, oh, Philip Seymour Hoffman. Why didn't I remember that? That's generally what happens, at least for me. You need those Philip Seymour Hoffman moments. I'm not talking about overdosing either.
Yeah, it's like I don't think anybody needs those moments.
Ping boop. Skype. Your ping boops. I'll hear Skype noises on my deathbed.
That's what you get for using Skype to communicate with your dev team.
Yeah, like the pearly white lights from heaven are going to be shining down on me, and like you'll just hear a very faint Skype ringtone emanating from them. Doo doo
Oh,
doo 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 doo.
that's a good animation idea.
Thank you.
It's my idea now.
You can take it. Yeah, it's yours.
Take it. It's been mine the
It's
whole time.
it's it's too late. I gave it to you, so you can't actually reappropriate it. Oh God, this hurts. I mean, we got a rank 9 out, and we finished a rank 8, and they're both 2 lines of text.
I think we've got at least, counting the line that rank 10 is on, 4 lines.
Nice. Okay, so we've got like a whole paragraph if we need it, which is refreshing because no, this isn't heaven, it's hell.
So,
uh, well, yeah, I mean Skype's got great features. Let's be honest here.
that
Call
would be.
quality, great. That's how it would be for me for Skype. Yeah. Yeah, I can't really argue for Skype being fantastic service. It is fantastic that it's free, and I've if Skype were a paid service where they announced that all of the hours you'd spent had to be paid for in some way, I would be broke. Not just broke, but I would have to sell all of my belongings and enter into an indentured servitude pact with Microsoft.
Yeah, see, I'm not going to sell my Gundams, so it's not happening.
I'm not gonna sell my Gundams. You can have anything you want, just don't touch my Gundams.
Yeah, man, they're too precious.
I always wanted to build Gundams, but the issue was that I didn't like the anime.
I mean, there's only one good Gundam anime,
Okay.
and
Is that
it's
is
G
that
Fighter.
G Fighter? Okay.
It's the best one
Oh.
because it's the most shonen Gundam ever created.
Oh,
It's literally just about Gundams fighting Gundams in a tournament.
I mean that
It's
is
fucking
probably the most
awesome.
Gundam ever, or Gundam show ever.
And I mean, like that. It and just Gundams are just cool. I don't.
I can
It doesn't
say
matter which one they're from. They're just cool. They look cool. They all look cool.
they're
Except for
cool.
Unicorn Gundams. I hate Unicorn Gundams. I don't know why. I just don't like them.
Well, what's interesting is that if you look at any anime, any manga, and I read a lot, watched a lot when I was younger, but if you look at any of them, the best chapters or episodes from those series are the tournament episodes because they're not talking all the time.
Well,
Like
yeah.
arguably the writing is the worst part of those shows. And even if you're very young, you can kind of tell that it's boring and you're not all that caught up in the narrative. But when the fighting comes on,
You're like,
it
oh crap, let's pay attention to this real quick.
yeah, especially when it's multiple episodes. Usually the arenas would fill up like 2 weeks of programming. G Fighter sounds like that Gundam would be popular with the ladies.
My Gundams actually have gotten me quite a few ladies.
Have they?
No,
Do you
they're
bring them with
Gundams.
you?
What are you talking about?
As a fan of anime. Well, awesome, you all. I'm glad that you agree. Uh, I'm just, just observationally, that seems to be the case. Every time you get out of the arena stage, it seems like power creep just overwhelms the show
Mm.
immediately. Because you have to do something cooler than fighting in an arena all the time, which never happens. I mean, what are you going to do that's cooler than that? Blow up a whole forest?
Well,
And
I mean, you could do Dragon Ball Z and just skip right to blowing up a planet.
yeah, but yeah, I guess you could. And back then, I was pretty into that. I've
I don't
learned
think
since.
action is always better. I myself do like the parts, even if they're just filler, where you get to know your characters.
But they're never well written, and the characters are never.
That's I can't say they're never well written.
All right, for
I
for
can say
shonen,
majority of the time they are terribly written,
yeah, okay.
but
I,
there are some times that it just feels really really good.
I agree. Action is always better. It's hard to make good talking. I think the issue is that these shows are not predicated around developing a narrative.
Yeah, most shonens are around just fighting
Right.
the big bad.
Exactly. And so since that's the pre-approved structure, anything that stands in the way of that encounter happening is
Seen as a nuisance, really.
yeah, I mean it is sort of a nuisance, and it's not like it isn't necessary. It is necessary because if you just had the fighting, you wouldn't care at all.
And
Uh,
oh wow, this is really boring. All they do is fight.
right, and I mean, everyone cried when Chaozu died.
Yeah, I mean, come on, seriously. If you're gonna say that you didn't, you're just lying to yourself.
You're lying to yourself. And when Tien died, I was lost his arm. God, Tien,
That was fucking super sad.
so sad. Um,
But I absolutely love it when Yamcha dies.
when Yamcha dies,
So that's pretty okay.
that Yamcha though. Um, yeah, good thing he got out of the way so Bulma and Vegeta could have a thing.
Exactly. And on that topic, Vegeta's mustache.
Yeah, that was a mistake, Vegeta.
And
Just
on that topic, we're not even talking about her game anymore. But
well, we've got
the new Dragon Ball Z movie is coming out, sequel to Battle of the Gods.
I'm staying away from all of those,
Stop.
every single one,
No.
never touching them,
Why?
because I got to a point in my life, it was about halfway through high school, a little bit later, where I was reading through the Naruto manga and I just put it down and I was like, this sucks. This
But I
actually sucks.
think it's good at Shippuden if you're just gonna talk about Naruto.
No, no, no. Like, just in general, I was reading through it and I was like, why am I reading this? I'm not enjoying it anymore. I'm not particularly attached to the characters. None of the narrative really appeals to me at all.
Yeah.
And I went through with each of the series that I used to like and I tried to watch them and I realized that they just weren't created for me anymore. It was that moment where I realized that my fairy godparents were gone forever. And
Well, then I think what you need to go watch is Kill la Kill.
I've heard that's good.
Um, and the biggest thing that drew me to it is, do you remember how good fight animes were when you were a kid?
Hmm.
It is the adult variant, and you just need to watch it.
Okay. Well, I'll take that suggestion seriously. As soon as I get some time after implementing our website and fixing Twitch and everything else.
And doing this rank 10 active.
Yeah, the rank 10 active. Okay, so while we've been talking, I've been mulling things around because
Mm-hmm.
it was fairly. I mean, Dragon Ball Z is something that we know intuitively. Of course.
Yeah.
You could ask me about Dragon Ball Z while I was sleeping, I'd probably spout out an essay. Um, and of course, Yajirobe is the best character. I won't accept any arguments against that.
I'm gonna have to agree. There's no arguments. He's the best character.
um, but as for this rank 10, I think I think that the mask thing's not going to work. We have something very special with how masks interact currently, and my urge always is to take that thing that we design in kits, that is the mask that we're giving to people, and just magnify it by a bajillion times. And I don't think that that's correct here. I think it's probably not correct in general because you're destroying a very fine player balance
Mm.
um, and interaction within the kit, something that they had to work a long time to cultivate um, and become facile with. And when you dumb it down to the point where they can just put it on everyone or put it on whomever they want on a turn, and they don't have to advance it turn by turn in the way that you provided for before, uh, it kind of undoes some of the magic. Now, with the Lost Strider, I think it works because he's a melee class and you want to attack multiple times, and the only thing better than attacking multiple times is attacking multiple times, multiple times. Um, but for this, it doesn't make sense to me, at least, to give everyone masks when it's been so crafted around being intentional about who you're choosing. Don't want to. I don't want to make those decisions irrelevant.
Right.
Kill la kill is what I was talking about.
That's me.
Okay, gotcha.
I just didn't want to interrupt you.
Yeah, sure, no problem. I was just looking over to make sure that I didn't miss like a beam of chat.
No,
Um,
I'm pretty good at catching it.
Thank you. It's an invaluable service you provide. Weren't here, then how would I have connected with PapsoDev? I probably like the issue. One of the issues, one of the large issues we had early in design stream was that I'd be streaming by myself trying to figure things out, and I'd look at the chat and there'd be like three people who had talked, and they'd already gone. I was like, oh, sorry. Also, it kind of feels like you're talking to yourself in the mirror when you're streaming alone, working on design. You're like feeding off of yourself talking about something, and it comes off as egomaniacal.
Well, I mean, there are people who are just good at it. It's something they're able to multitask about.
Yeah, I'm not saying that everyone comes off in that way. I think that I probably, maybe I'm just self-conscious about that. I think anytime that you talk a lot about something that you enjoy or something that you made, you run the risk of kind of full of yourself.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's another reason why, as much as I love being self-congratulatory about the design, things that we're doing well, trying to avoid doing it too frequently. I'm sure you guys in chat are like, "Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah, you totally avoid it." uh,
Hmm.
yeah, it
I don't got anything for this rank 10 right now.
active. Okay, well, let's. I mean, if we break down what an active wants to do, you mentioned earlier interaction is something it does really well. In fact,
It's interruption.
interruption, yes.
It's what the Cabaretto's actives are doing right now is they're interrupting and they are retargeting.
What we want to do is figure out either a new way of doing that, which I don't think we should do, or a new thing that actives do, some mechanic that they allow for better than basics, and roll with it. Uh,
Hmm.
And usually, what I do if I get stuck in our game is I'd go look at Magic the Gathering as like a design Bible source.
It's funny because you've already said that about Blizzard.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you're like, I go to Blizzard as a design Bible.
Yeah. Well, they've been around for so long, and they've
Well, yeah, no, I'm not saying
yeah.
it's a bad thing to go to, but really, you got two Bibles? Come on.
I have a hard enough time talking in a regular to another person kind of. Well, sorry. We love you. We think that you're incredibly eloquent, and also that G Fighter joke was on point. The references are out of control. Um, they've done so much design. They've gone through so many employees trying to pursue something that doesn't exist. This illusory divine goal of perfect design. And I think Magic the Gathering doesn't hit that goal with every card they produce, and that's intentionally so, of course. I mean, they're trying to produce some duds so that the draft environment is good, but um, they've gotten better over time, and they've also just pushed out what card games can do in so many different directions. What an instant can do, what a sorcery can do, how they should work, how that identity can be defined, and how it can be defined through a spectrum of colors. It's I googled that joke.
That's
um,
where all good real humor comes from.
you you'd almost be remiss to try and figure things out on your own when you're stuck, when you could study from someone who's done it so well.
Yeah,
You know? So
I know what you mean.
I don't know. Generally, if I'm really stuck, and in fact I'll do it here on stream, I'll show you. Oh yeah. So what type of RPG is your game? A turn-based one? Yes. Yes, it is. It's
Think
exactly correct.
Final Fantasy Tactics, if you've ever played that.
Mm-hmm. I love Final Fantasy. Oh, are you talking to him? Okay. Yes.
I'm answering the question, definitely.
Mhm.
And in fact, I have played through all three Final Fantasy Tactic games. More than enough. And it is a good turn reference for what we're trying to do with this.
Okay, so if I open up six top 10 lists, best instance of all time on Google, which is easy mode, by the way, to do.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. Fortunately,
There.
they don't have the cards in such a way that you can just see
The image of the
the
card.
image. And something else that you should be wary of when you're designing is if you're looking at the best things that Magic has to offer, they're usually the most broken things
Yes.
that Magic has to offer.
Magic is really good at breaking themselves.
So, in order to get a better idea, and I was wary of this, I'm just going to go to Instant and Gatherer, and this will give me a list of every single instant. Uh, should have given me a list of every single instant. Oh, gain life. Here we go.
Well, it's doing it by colors.
It well, it had gain life instance, but now it should be every instant. All right.
Yeah, instant, not instances.
So yeah, so I can't click you attack or select a skill, etc. Yeah, basically, there are three rows, and on either side, and there's a front row, a middle row, and a back row, and we've condensed Final Fantasy Tactics combat field down to what we perceive to be the absolute necessary ranges. There's close range, short range, and long range.
I don't know if you've played Etrian Odyssey. I know I've talked about this with you before,
Mm-hmm.
but the row composition is absolutely similar to that.
Okay,
But instead of 2 rows, it is 3.
and that's that's kind of what we're going for. Is we're gonna we've condensed the rows down, and the main complication basically is just that you have to have a person on your front row at all times. Uh, if that person on your front row dies, and you can have multiple, but if your last person on the front row dies or moves back to the middle row, the front row disappears, and your middle row becomes your front row, and so on and so forth. So a lot of the strategy is about taking out the tank line of the other team so that you can advance on their squishies, beat them into submission.
Ah, yes.
Uh, Collector number, community rating. So let's do the community rating scale, and I'm guessing I should have put it on descending. All right, so the best instance as rated by Magic Community, Wirewood Pride. So it's an instant speed buff, which we don't do very many of because we don't like stat buffs. But I wonder maybe if we could make a buff on this class that would make sense.
Hmm. Yeah, in a way, it is kind of a mix between Fire Emblem and Final Fantasy Tactics.
I kind of agree with that. Yeah,
It's a very astute observation.
yeah. I played a lot of Fire Emblem growing up, and it was one of my favorite games. So
Yes.
I think it would be difficult not to acknowledge the
I don't know how I didn't make that connection.
Fire Emblem.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just such a good game. The first time I played it, I got stuck.
Oh, which one did you play?
Just Fire Emblem.
Like,
Well, seven, I guess, or eight, whichever it
oh, the
is.
GameCube one?
No, the Game Boy Advance one.
Sacred Stone?
No, the one before it.
Oh, crap. Is that the one with Roy? Or
It's the
the
one
one.
with Elliewood and Lynn and Marcus, or
Oh, yeah, that one's super good.
Marcus. Is that his
Alright,
name?
so yeah, Papsidev, it was good for you to come in. Thanks for watching for as much as you did.
Yeah, thank you so much, Pepsidev. I'll talk to you a little bit later, and thanks. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I agree with Evil Hollow. I started on Sacred Stones, and it's pretty much my favorite one.
I liked Sacred Stones a lot. I liked the branching upgrade paths in that game quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
That was something that they improved upon. That wasn't in Fire Emblem. Um, I thought the branching storyline was pretty cool, though it could have been done better. Uh, I like the characters better in Fire Emblem. I did in Secret Stones, but I think
Yeah,
that's
I agree
probably
with that.
yeah. Checking my dinner. Sure. See you back soon. Okay, so an instant speed buff. What does that look like for this class? Do we need it? That's the other question. What does this class need? Needs very little at this point. Needs one last thing. In fact, I think the rank 10s are less about what it needs and what would make it more. Instead, it's more about what would make it more fun. Rank 10 is the fun ability, the thing that sort of
Yeah.
breaks down barriers between mechanics that you'd kept up. Uh, for this class, I wonder what that is.
Uh, and again, I'm throwing out some bad ideas. Uh, what if the Cabaretto makes a basic attack and the makes a sequential basic attack for each masked character?
Okay, so sequential something based on masked characters.
I know that's kind of what is it, rank 6, and what rank 6 is doing, and almost kind of a little bit what the Lost Rider is doing.
Hmm. So
But it was
let's
just
take
an idea I'm
attacks.
tossing out.
Let's take attacks out of that. Hey, welcome back, Evil Hollow. Yeah, okay, so if it weren't attacks, what would it be?
Hmm.
Attack is your basic form of win interaction. If you're trying to win,
Yeah.
attacking is what you want to do. So how does the Cabaretto win?
Right now, a lot of his damage is coming from fanging. Maybe he does some sort of damage based on feign on masked characters, but that's really mathy.
What if you can force abilities out?
What do you mean?
Okay, thinking this through. It's gonna take a second. You were saying that you thought it'd be interesting if you could have them attack multiple times, for however many masked characters there are, and then we discussed what it was that Cabaretto wanted to be doing, how they wanted to be winning. I don't think it's by attacking. I think you're right that that's the Lost Strider's identity. However, how the Cabaretto attacks is by making the enemy attack themselves. It's
Yeah.
basically the class that takes your hand and starts slapping you in the face with it.
Yeah.
You can't do very much about it. Some
Maybe
of the
you can
feigned
store
damage and
some
turn
of the
back to
feigned damage and then
attacking.
turn it back towards the attacker. That's an idea we had earlier, kind of, in development.
And it's not a bad one either.
No, it's not.
The issue comes in. I,
It's almost a reward for holding on to feigned damage.
yeah, we've got
And,
6 abilities that are working off of feigned damage at the moment.
yeah, I think you need a two-screen setup.
Yeah, I do. I need another monitor, but I can't really fit another monitor in my bed. So
That's why you buy two laptops.
yeah, I mean that would work. I guess. Yeah. Um, I could do that, but there would be no room left for me on the bed. It's a pretty big bed, but 2 laptops and the amount of heat that produces in the summer is insane.
Right.
I can make this work in the winter, but summer would be bad.
Oh, crap, what were we talking about?
Okay, so the way that most classes win is they deal attack damage. Our class is about returning attack damage on the other person. And we have this ability that we just made in which enemy characters affected by your mask lose max HP equal to half the damage they would deal with abilities that you do not possess. So I was thinking maybe it would be interesting if you encourage that sort of thing, or you almost command it. You, we were talking about how we're kind of forcing people to.
Assume the Cabaretto identity.
Right. I think the issue here is that right now we're doing it implicitly. If we do it explicitly, then that gets rid of some of the subtlety of the class, which is a real, I think, a boon in the design so far for the player. If we
Yeah.
forced the ability from people, it wouldn't be the same. But I think maybe we could play around more with this idea of using the enemy as unwitting players in your plan, whatever your plan may be. Maybe we're using masked characters as a resource, which is what I liked from your idea.
Right.
So how do we more beds, more problems? Yeah, yeah. Maybe I could keep getting more beds. There's room for another bed. I just have to scoop myself up next to the closet. There's spooky, scary things in there. So masked characters as a resource. I like that. I like that idea. It's a good idea. It's not a stupid idea like you
And
said
it
it
would tie
was.
back into, I think it's rank 6.
Huh.
Because you're using the mass characters to do more damage.
Yeah, it'd feel very connected to this part of the kit. It seems like it's all leading up to something like that.
Yeah.
And it's not like we're giving extra masks out. Still be
No.
managing, work off of you managing masks efficiently. Perhaps spending a long time masked and getting multiple out to enemies. So that's a playstyle that we want to encourage, I think. Um there's nothing at the moment that rewards you explicitly or getting a whole bunch of masks out to the enemy team. Maybe there should be.
I feel a little hung up that we're only getting one ally to have a mask besides the Cabaretto.
You are?
Yeah.
Well, well, okay. One moment. I'll respond to Evil Hollow. What what were you playing? It might not be worth abandoning that game to try and learn from us, but, but I'm glad that that you're interested. Um, here's what I'm thinking, right? If we make it so that the enemy, right now we have it so that our allies are putting masks on, and it's clear to me that we're doing more harm than good by putting a mask on an ally. At least it appears that way. There are certain benefits that they're getting, but those benefits are mostly there to encourage the enemy to attack them.
Right, but when they attack them, they're taking damage in return, which
Yeah,
is
the
the
enemy.
only way the Cabaretto is doing damage.
Sure, sure, but basically,
What
you're
if the amount of players. Because you can only mask players on your row, right?
right.
Does switching a row remove the mask from that player?
No,
Okay. What if there can only be a certain amount of masked players per row, almost like the summon spots? And I know I'm trying to dance around this idea to make it work by adding all this other crap,
sure. Well,
but
okay. Well, here's my justification for why I think that your idea still works. It's just it'll be implemented differently, or it might work better as being implemented differently. And by the way, Evil Hollow, I'm happy to hear that. Hopefully, we can teach something. Um, it thematically within the character, and I mean, you can find any way you want to justify this, I suppose, but this is how I'm justifying it to myself. Within this character, it seems to me that you want people whom you do not care about, and it's not clear if you care about anyone really, if you're willing to expend anyone really, to it seems as though earlier in the kit you're willing to expend your allies more for your goals, whatever they may be. And as the kit progresses, we're making a comment on how the Cabaretto learns to use enemies and people who aren't a part of their immediate circle to influence, uh, to allow for their goals to go off more correctly. They become more skilled at manipulating these people, basically. And as the manipulation becomes more skillful, there becomes a focus on using allies less, utilizing enemies more. It's something that we actually encourage uh, through our design ranks 6, 7, 8, and 9. It's not only something we encourage, but it's something that um, the player should be learning to do, or should have mastered by rank 9. Um, and so if we've spent the first part of the kit developing that you can share the mask with allies, and then we've spent the second part of the kit expanding upon that idea and saying it's much better to do this with enemies, then I think what we want to do, rather than expanding the mask out to more allies, is provide an incentive for the player to proliferate out to as many enemies as possible. To to say instead uh, that I figure out a way to tie this all back together. I probably already said it. Uh, said what I needed to say, and I probably don't need to belabor the point. But there's one last connecting thread here.
no, but I understand what you're trying to say.
Okay.
And if that's the case, then we need to put that into our rank 10.
Yes. Yeah. That's what I'm thinking. Is like, so far we have the idea there.
We just
The,
don't have execution for it.
right. And so with this last ability, we make the final comment on. But what might be interesting then is to have it go either way. You could use your allies in this thing, or you could use your enemies in this thing, and perhaps it's not more efficient one way than the other. But I almost wonder because okay, if we do it that way, then the character can be going either way. They could be using everyone in service of their goals, or they could just be using their enemies in service of their goals, or just their allies. Although I think it's more likely that a player will choose their enemies. Um,
Yeah.
or we could definitively say the Cabaretto learned or became more adept at saving the people uh, whom they feel more responsibility for, even if they don't feel a connection to them. Perhaps they're resources that are
They're invaluable resources that can't be replaced.
right, right. Whereas these enemies are certainly.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes. Okay.
I think I'd rather do that. I don't think this ability needs to be read in two ways. Maybe it will be just by the very virtue of how we choose to represent it. But it should work with masked characters, and maybe then need to figure out what we can use masked characters as a resource for.
And we already said he doesn't. Or the Cabaretto's not trying to do damage by attacking. He's trying to do feign damage to do damage.
It can't be a passive either. I was thinking in terms of passives.
No.
It could be, but we'd have to move. We'd have to make one of the two previous abilities inactive or something.
Yeah.
Um, we thought more about it. And it seems like it's helping, but
Hmm.
uh, as an active, it's them to use masked characters as a resource. Enemies are the preferential masked resource. What exactly that resource to be doing? Is it like mana, or is the resource intrinsically a part of the ability? Taxing them for mana, or are you taxing them for health? I don't think either of those things fit.
No.
Then how are you utilizing them as part of? Are you using it as a redirect? We already have redirects, so it doesn't make sense to balance more things between them.
What if some kind of redistribution of feign damage from enemies to allies?
But that feels less like a rank 10 and more like
Yeah.
it feels like something that would be good, but it wouldn't be exciting to a player.
We're trying to work out what this rank 10's even gonna do, and we seem to be at a hilariously between a rock and a hard place.
It's difficult to keep all of the restrictions. Like I was talking about that fuzzy tree, blindfolded Christmas tree analogy earlier. That why did I put it? Um, I was talking about that earlier. It's hard to keep all the stuff in your head, and that's fuzzy. But on top of all the stuff that you have to remember about the skills and how they interact, you also have all of the restrictions that you're putting on yourself, all the rules that you need to follow, all of the things that you'd like to do with each rank. That's why I said earlier maybe the game would have been better with five. I don't think so either necessarily. I think it works pretty. I do kind of wonder if you get to a 10 skill system trying to have everything work sequentially, if it's not too difficult to spin all the plates at once, um, and do it in such a way that you can be efficient and design efficiently and get a volume of work done. Because a lot of the time that we're spending here is perfectionist time. Like we could technically go with any of these abilities that we're coming.
Yeah, but I don't want to.
No, yeah, and I guess that's the point. Is like we don't want to, and we could just pick anything. Really, that's I guess what's so fun about design for me is that it is so difficult to come up with the thing that feels perfect. But the thing that's so maddening is that whatever you define as perfect today,
It's
in
gonna
3 months,
change.
yeah, in 3 months, it could definitely be like, wow, the implementation of this ability was off. It could have been done this way. But I suppose that's beautiful in its own way too. Constructing. It's kind of like when we were going through the old classes. It's like walking through an abandoned city or something. Old saloon, ghost town. Seeing all of the
Yeah.
artifacts of your past hopes and dreams. You've replaced them.
Evil Hollow, you have an idea for the base, a little basic for rank 10?
Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to hear it.
Just type that out real fast. It may absolutely save our butts.
You might, and if you do, then you'll get your name in the credits. Connecting the idea of masked characters as a resource to the idea of active obviously redirect, which also works.
Mm.
Putting damage against them is basically redirect. So if we were going to do something, it would have to operate outside of that, which would mean we'd have to make it mechanics that we already do. You can't create a new mechanic, but you can create new interactions between that you already have.
Right.
So
Um,
if we create a new interaction
what
between
if,
masks, but
what if we, I know I'm cutting you off.
no, go ahead.
Um,
I'm just rambling.
what if, I don't know how I want to word this, but the transferring of feign damage to one character, and if it goes past a certain amount of damage, it turns into direct damage and deals damage. Something like that.
I think I would do max HP if I were going to do something like that. Seeing as we just made a max HP ability, it's like something that
Right.
it seems as though what we don't want to be doing with this ability is focusing on damage anymore. We want to be focusing on how the other abilities in our kit are dealing damage. Like
And again, that's going back to feign damage.
sure, but like okay, so here's what I'm trying to do basically. Like we have a way of doing damage, which is feign damage. Now, if we pull back away from feign damage and we look at the way that the skills are connecting as though they have threads between them, then you see that the mask is what's in charge of feign damage working.
Right, yeah.
Right.
I'm not disagreeing with that at all.
Sure. So if we're trying to affect feign damage, but we don't want to do it directly, we're trying to do it indirectly, then I think what we do is we connect our idea to masks in general. So what I'm trying to figure out is how we are taking the amount of masks that you've put on the field and connecting those indirectly to something that makes your feign damage better. We're never saying feign damage in the ability. We're never really even alluding to
Right.
it directly. We're just creating a preferential circumstance in which you can develop. Mask of Sin. Multiple masked users are needed to cast the ability. The spell takes 2 to complete it. The spell increases all stats greatly. Stats will up a lot. Yeah, so I think that's a great idea, Evil Hollow. Something that we're doing in our game, something that we've spent a lot of time trying to make sure that we we avoid. And I don't think it's anything like against the designers who use them. But for me in games, a lot of the time it feels like when I get a stat up, it's just helping me to do it's helping me to do the interesting things I like to do better. And what I'd rather do instead of doing those interesting things better necessarily is make the things more interesting or make more interesting things or interesting connections because I think invariably if you ask players what they like about getting loot or getting a weapon that's really good like a sword or something that has like plus 50 attack, it's not the plus 50 attack that they like, it's the idea of this big buster sword in their hands that they're swinging with and that it's hurting their enemies. I mean, they see the effect and they like the effect, but the cause isn't particularly interesting. And what would be more interesting than 50 attack on the Buster Sword is, um, if you were playing in a 3D game, for instance, is if when you hit the enemy, they had a chance to explode into bits that fractured out and pierced enemies nearby. Like if you could actually explode an enemy into shrapnel, have them go through other enemies, that would be really cool. Much cooler necessarily, at least in my opinion, than the extra damage would be. And it's not as though you're not representing extra damage. You're just choosing a more active way of representing it to the player. So that's what we're really trying to do determinedly is find ways to avoid giving stat ups, so that we can pursue other avenues of design that we feel are neglected, I guess. Uh,
This is pretty much what I think Control 13 is saying right here.
yeah.
Stat increases are really a bottom tier upgrade. Actively changing an ability is way cooler.
Yeah, and I'm sorry if I went into too much detail there. I still, yeah, someone would be, yeah. So we have a lot of summoner classes, and you're right. That's a great solution to the issue. It allows you to create something that's not a stat buff that players can interact with. That's very cool. And in fact, the first implementation of this class had a summon.
Yeah,
Where,
the clones that are now enemy and ally characters were once summons included in summon spots that you paid health to create.
yes. And we thought that would be a great idea and it would work really well. But the issue was that we saw that the class, or I think JJ pointed it out really.
Yeah,
Um,
he did.
JJ said, he's the other designer who works with us a lot of times, that the issue is going to be that the class would end up being a health management class rather than what we wanted it to be, which was a rogue. And while it still has aspects of health management with feigned damage, um, at this point, I think it feels more manipulative because you're using assets or people that are already on the board and controlling them, controlling how they interact with one another, rather than just operating with a summon. Um, but it's really cool that you came up with that, and came to that independently because that's exactly where we went first thing. That's very encouraging. If you haven't worked in design, you should really consider doing so. Stat increases are really bottom tier upgrade. Control 13, I agree with you.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier.
Yeah,
That this person was saying that.
I agree with you. I think I forget who first said that, whom I was turned on to, that talking about stats not being interesting. I think it was extra credits was talking about.
Yeah, and I think that one was a while ago.
Yeah, it was in their
Like
design, like design 101 or something, and I was
the clip of
watching.
design videos they did.
Yeah, watching like 90 of them in a row, just trying to learn as much as I could because it was the first time that I'd found a resource like that was entertaining to watch. And they said something like, why not have incomparables on your gear instead of having stats where someone's going to find a weapon that has the best stats eventually? It's really hard to compare an ice weapon versus a lightning weapon versus a fire weapon. And so uh, I was like, you're absolutely right. No more stats in the game. Let's do incomparables from here on out. Um, so I'd like to credit them with that. Extra credit them if possible. So these mask abilities make me think of cultists summoning demons to save them or buff them, have the power of a demon. That's interesting too. Um,
Hmm. I think we should probably give a little bit of the background on the Cabarettos as a character.
sure. So a lot of the time, and I want to state again that I think it's a really cool idea. Uh, and usually, when we run into a really cool idea that would work really well with the class, the thing that we have to ask ourselves outside of the mechanics of the ability are what matters to the character. What kind of character are they? And for the Cabaretto, whew, let's see if I can summarize this quickly. The Cabaretto is a rather androgynous looking person, and no one can clearly define, at least on a day to day basis, whether he or she is of whatever gender uh, they appear to be representing. Um, and that's something that they use to their advantage, and something that we're not really going to comment on. I don't think we're ever going to say which gender they are. Um, but they're using their gender, they're using their ambiguity of identity as a tool most times, because their chosen profession is that of a traveling performer. They perform with this group of other theatricians, and they move from town to town. But they have a primary goal while they're moving about, and performing is their secondary goal. The primary goal, of course, for them is to assassinate small officials in those towns under the cover of night, or sometimes even at their performances, while they have everyone else's attention, and then scoot town before anyone notices. Um, we're not sure exactly who they're affiliated with at the moment, but we think trading company or something like that. And the Cabaretto may not be in charge of all of this, but they're certainly the best at what they do as a part of this specific company. Um, and a lot of that has to do with the extents to which they're willing to go to fulfill a contract or to complete a job. Uh, their identity is, in effect, what they do rather than whom they represent themselves to be. I hope that was grammatically correct. Might have been who they represent themselves to be. Uh, and so a lot of the time with the Cabaretto, we're trying to figure out how they would be fulfilling that job, that role. And it seems what we've developed here is telling us that that's frequently how it goes. We'll have an idea, and then the design will tell us what the truth is. It seems as though the Cabaretto manipulates those around them to become more like them. Which isn't necessarily identity ambiguous, but seems to suggest that there is a latent identity that the Cabaretto does associate themselves with. And that identity is represented by this mask. Um, and the mask happens to symbolize, hopefully, the job, position. Um, and I think that's the comment that we're trying to make, is that they're willing to sacrifice most everything um, for this goal, whatever it is, and why that is will be explored in their narrative. When I was speaking with our lead writer, we were talking about how we really want another character to accompany the Cabaretto, and perhaps for the Cabaretto not to be the main focus of the story, but for this child or whomever is associated with them to be trying to figure this person out, to have a secondary lens, because we feel like for a player it's going to be really difficult to get into the head of the Cabaretto.
You
Um,
just threw another game into my head, and I know I'm cutting you off on
sure,
this.
go ahead.
Uh, the series of Unlimited games, for instance, Unlimited Saga, there are multiple characters who do different things, and for different reasons. Their stories are a lot like vignettes. There is one character is a female ex-pirate. She has a boy traveling with her, and they're both it's equally main characters.
Uh huh.
And I'm sorry, that just popped into my head.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I like that someone else is doing that. I'll actually have to go check that out. Would you say they're good games?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember what the one after Unlimited Saga is, but yes, they're pretty good.
Um,
Okay, you
yeah,
got an ability that can make opponents units for that can make opponent units
yes,
for center on turns.
yes. We have an ability. And in fact, as soon as we finish this rank 10, we'll be going through all of them over again to do like a rundown of what they all do and how they interact. But um, the rank 7, is it
Yes,
the rank
it's rank
7?
7 and kinda rank 6.
Yeah, if you read the rank 7, could someone catch me up with the gist of the gameplay first time watching? Sure. And we'll be adding this to the FAQ shortly, but basically, see if I can find both answers. um, I'm going to go over base gameplay stuff first. There are 3 rows on either side. A row, a middle row, and a back row. You have melee guys that go on the front row, and you have ranged guys that go on the middle and back row, and sometimes melees that go on the middle as well. And you square off with your opponents, and you try and interact with them tactically. 6 on a side. It doesn't have to be 6v6, but it can be up to 6v6. And the wrinkle is that when you take everyone off of the enemy's front row, if you either kill everyone on it or force them all back to the next row, then that row disappears and their middle row becomes their front row. So the tactics are generally revolving around getting rid of their front row first. Um, but you don't have to win that way if you don't want to. As for the second question, we have a passive in this kit, and you've probably heard a lot about it by now because we've been talking about it a lot. This mask that you can put on people, you can put them on enemies as well as allies. And when you put them on enemies, we have a system in place whereby enemies are sort of taxed into using abilities that you have, and the abilities that you have tend to benefit you because um, on your side of the field, they take in enemy damage and redirect it into doing positive things. On the opposing side of the field, when they use them, when the enemy uses your abilities, it ends up doing the same thing. Um, so you can kind of control what the enemy's doing, and if they to an extent, I don't know how to. Do you have anything you want to add, Logan?
I'm pretty sure you're getting it.
Okay. Yeah, you can kind of control what they're doing. You influence them into using the same type of skills that you have, which don't work for them nearly as well because they don't have the rest of the kit. That
And even with them using those skills, they are. Uh, if they don't want to hurt themselves, they're still benefiting you.
yes, yeah. So I think that's kind of like the
Yeah, it is kind of like the Grimrock party combat, where the front row is blocking the back row.
yes, um, exactly correct. And it takes a turn. It takes your turn to switch positions unless you have some kind of ability that lets you move at active speed. And active is instant speed, and basic is sorcery speed, which is another thing to add to the FAQ.
Yeah, in reference to magic.
Yes, in reference to Magic the Gathering. Sorry. Thank you for clarifying. How does combat work? What are actives and basics? God, I'm gonna love this FAQ.
It's gonna be. I hope it's gonna be good.
So too. Um, but yeah, it might feel a little bit like Grimrock, but with more characters. And we're trying to add more, have it be more ability based than combat interaction based like Grimrock's is. Not saying it's bad or good. I think Grimrock's combat is actually quite serviceable and pretty fun,
I think it's on point.
given that it's primarily a puzzle game. And I love that. I love that about it. It's so cool that that sort of game can be designed nowadays and be successful. Tossing a random thought out there. Bravely Default combat system is the coolest thing ever. Turn-based
I
games.
absolutely agree.
Bravely Default.
It is a 3DS game. I haven't played, but I have had the combat system. I've watched the combat system and had it explained to me a few times, even if I might be incorrect in describing it. Pretty much, I don't remember. I think defaulting is blocking, and what you do is essentially you store up extra turns with braving. And I'm
This is
probably
really cool.
using this definition wrong, but it allows you to act more than once per turn.
All right, so in the list of games I have to play, I guess I'm adding this one.
Yeah, it's the spiritual successor to For Warriors of Light.
Okay, so on top of everything else to do, need to study this. I wonder, have you ever seen anyone streaming it? I have the game, but cool.
Mm, not really.
You can't really stream 3DS, can you?
Well, you can. It's just increasingly difficult. The because there are streams of uh, Smash Bros. 3DS when it first came out. Yeah, default. You take less damage and store a turn. Brave. You spend extra turns to do extra damage. You can go down to -4 turns or +4 turns. Yeah. See, he or she described it better than I did.
Yeah, no, I like this a lot. This is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Um, I like interacting with the turn system in that way. Now, is it multiplayer? Is it
No, it
single
is
player?
a single player game.
Okay, I was about to say that sort of thing wouldn't work as well in multiplayer because if you're taking multiple turns in a row, then it's not as fun for the other players.
Yeah.
I got beaten with typing it up. We appreciated the effort, and thanks. I try and do this every once in a while. We should even have a bot that does it. I need to put a bot in the channel. But thank you guys all for watching. We appreciate having you here. I mean, uh, it may seem like all doom and gloom now that we're at the rank 10. Maybe it's not that way in general, but it can get kind of isolating, I guess, when it's just two people working on something. When you guys are here, it feels like we've got a community working on these skills. So
Yeah, we appreciate you guys.
thank you for being our community, as Mr. Rogers would say,
Thank you for being our neighbor.
our neighbor. My neighbor.
Okay.
Okay, so
Right.
the thought I was having earlier was that if we pull back and we go up a few layers, the masks are the primary mechanic.
Yes.
They're the thing that's influencing just about every other ability, and we actually have fairly little to do with actually interacting with the mask itself. I don't mean that in terms of proliferating the mask. We have ways of taking the mask's effects and spreading them, but there's nothing that actually says, like, your mask gets this, or you can do this with your mask. Um,
I think that's something I might have tried to bring up in the very initial stages.
yeah,
Different masks, different abilities.
right. And I think that's, I think that's interesting. And the first time we went through and did this class, that's what we did.
Yeah.
The issue with it is just that you have to balance all the different types of masks against each other.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I know this.
okay, yeah, sorry, I'm just trying to fill in the chat.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Sorry.
no, no problem. So just dynamic example, add a healing based character about go full brave, so I could provide constant heals to my team. That's really cool. I like that. Um, it's a very cool system. So, um, mask, right? So, what I was thinking was more along the lines of like, instead of functionally changing how your mask works, taking account of the masks that are there.
Hmm.
Because there's nothing that does that so far. There's no reference to how many you have out or how well you're proliferating or what you're taking control of. There's no top down view of the kit that's referenced in an ability. Oh, if that's necessary?
Are you trying to? I'm trying to figure out. Mm,
Yeah, basically, I'm trying to like this is, I'm going to be on page 5. But like if this is, um, I hate when the spacing gets all funky. It's difficult to do what you want to do. All right, so that's feign damage. These are the interactions with feign damage, or rather, if I'll explain it once I get this put in. Just trying to visualize this briefly. Okay, so if the mask is at the very top here, and then these are feign damage interactions, and these are the abilities themselves. I'm trying to figure out what goes on top of the mask. Like what operates in this zone above. Uh, and actually, what's a fairly interesting approximation of that Christmas tree from the earlier example. Yeah, but where's our design space up here? Because if we're only operating in design space that's been defined by things that are mask related, which is what we've been doing. What happens above the mask? Because I think that that's where we'll probably find our answer. Evening chat. Oh, hello, the huge poot. Welcome to our design stream. Feel free to ask any questions that you would like.
Make sure you read the our itty bitty tiny fact first.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully, by the time we're done, it'll be a I don't know. I don't know what the letters FAQ could possibly stand for besides frequently asked questions. But I was going to try and expand the acronym out, make it funny that way.
You already lost it. So
Yeah, it's
just
it's gone. It's gone. I'm sorry. I let you all down. By the time we're done, it'll be a frequently asked questions.
oh.
Wow, what a blazing wit. Um, yeah. So, ugh. So what is above the mask? We can take note of how many masks there are, and then define something based around that. And that's all I've got.
You kind of mean like I guess it would be similar to, give me a sec, the rank 5 of the Cavalier, where between this many amount of masks you get this bonus.
Interesting. I was thinking something that resulted in less text, something that's just checking for a
Well, right.
value, and then you gain something from that value, whatever. I don't
Yeah.
know what you would be gaining.
Well,
That
that's almost the same thing as what I said,
yeah,
or at least similar.
to yeah, yeah. Sorry, I may be speaking fairly nebulously. I'm trying to figure out exactly how far that interaction can go. Like what what are the bounds of interaction with the amount of masks that we have per list? I don't know. I don't know, like, because we don't operate in this kind of 10,000 foot view of our classes.
Yeah, this is the first time.
We operate in a way where we're immersed in them generally, filthy with them. Time we emerge.
Um, hmm.
But if we were looking down at this pool of water from a distance, and we had to figure out what the primary mechanic was, and then how we could interrelate that
What if the Cabaretto is able to share the abilities of people he's masked?
to people it's masked.
As in, they already have the Cabaretto's abilities.
Ooh,
What if the Cabaretto is able to use some of their
ooh, their
abilities?
basics.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay, so we're adding back that functionality onto, but we're doing it in a different way. I like that a lot. That is a passive. Oh, but maybe. Oh, okay. Hold on.
So there we go. That got
You
the gears turning.
use. Yeah, yeah, it did. That's such a good idea. Wow. Awesome. Uh, uh, you may respond with any
It has to be active
yes.
because you can't break the rules
Cast
of ability speeds.
cast any active of target masked character
And at this point, this is
for
forcing you to think
its
about who you're
cost.
masking, not
Yes.
just in the benefit of doing damage, but in the benefit of okay, what actives do I want? Which ones do I need? Which ones
Look,
work better
Logan,
for the
that's
situation?
that's so perfect. That is such a good idea. Holy crap. Cast any active target mask character for its cost. So this is zero cost. Uh, no cost. It's done.
Look how easy that is. Look how simple.
Yeah, yeah, I didn't. I
It's
mean,
one
but
line of text.
that's what's like. But that's what's beautiful about it, you know.
We spent about an hour and a half talking about this one ability, and it came out to be one line of text.